We are on a series of Adulting It. And there's just one truth that I want you to hold out today. Adulting It truth. Always use the good china. See, every Sunday when I was a child, after the resort closed for the winter, we would go visiting all of the family we could not see during the summer. And we would gather at all of my cousins' homes, or they would come to ours, and we'd gather for a Sunday dinner made of all that chicken and roast beef that was in the oven waiting during church. And we would gather at the table, and we would always use the fine china. Do you remember having those kind of conversations, those dinners? We always used the fine china. It was usually grandma's or something handed on down. See, there's something different as I've gone through the years thinking about that experience. There's something different about the experience of using fine china instead of disposable plastic or paper dishes. See, china holds the memory of the person who has used it before you. The person who purchased it, the person who has gathered at the table with you. So if you take a little piece of china and you hold it in your hand, you kind of notice there's a weight to it. Even though it looks fragile, there is a weight to it. It's well balanced, it's beautiful, and though it appears delicate, it is very sturdy. It's artistic. There's usually a design or even the shape of it. And yet, it's very hearty and functional for all those hearty meals. You never see things bend and flip off of these plates, do you? Once it's on the plate, it stays on the plate. And when fine china is tapped, this is what I like about it. There's a little ring that it makes. You can hear it almost sing when you put china on the plate. I love china. You can see my house. I have lots of china. But I'll tell you, a disposable plate just doesn't do any of those things, does it? The very act of setting a table with china is becoming an old school thing. But when you put china on the table, it takes time to set the table, doesn't it? It fosters this creative spirit and this stunning arrangement of plates and cups and silverware in a perfect pattern. And it makes the whole table beautiful. Fundamentally, china is for the basis of the experience when we gather at the table, but it does something more. What I can remember about family experiences is this. I remember sitting around a table with china, but I don't remember family meals with paper plates, except for those on the lakeshore. I don't remember a single family meal where we had paper plates. I remember the meals where we used the best china. I remember the conversations during the meal. I remember the conversations at the sink, washing the dishes. And a very interesting coupling of people who are there, an assortment of aunts and uncles and cousins, men and women who don't normally sit at the sink together, but they'd share this common conversation. And those who would be in the dining room clearing the table. I don't remember a single serious conversation when we quickly gathered all of the disposables and threw them in 2 large garbage bags and got them out of the way. I don't remember a single conversation with paper plates. It seems like we valued the moments at the table more when we had the china. The meals would linger, conversations would erupt. People seemed to matter when you set the table for them. Moments were created, memories were made. In fact, it seems that in our attempt to make meals more efficient and easy and more casual, we have thrown out the valuable space that unexpected memories are created when china is used at the table. Instead, moments and even relationships become disposable. But with china, we give the people time and space for unexpected interactions and moments. So in this Adulting It series, there's just one truth I want you to remember today. I want to pass this down to my young people who are too quick to dismiss the china, staking a claim in life now, starting to create their own memories and wondering who they are and what their identity is. Here's my adulting truth. Use the good china. Meet at the table. Slow life down. Value the meal and the people at it and the time it takes to set the table and wash the dishes. Because you never know who is really at that table or what will become of them tomorrow. Because there's a story in the Gospel of John about Mary. She's one of my favorite women in the Bible. The story, though, I believe would not have happened today if we had used paper plates. Would not have happened if we had been too quick to throw everything away once Jesus came, ate, and left. No, there is a dinner. There's a beautiful dinner, and there's all the china at the table that they would have used, and it lingered for hours. See, Mary uses the time and the space at the table to meet someone who forever changed her life. I love Mary. Mary is trying to make her own way in the world that is not kind to women. And she goes against the grain. She's going against the counter against the world's idea of what women should do. Mary is a person who feels deeply. We know this in other stories of her, but she is also very spontaneous and honest and transparent in her actions. A few weeks earlier, before this story, her brother Lazarus became ill. And Mary and her sister Martha sent for Jesus, who was a close family friend, to come quickly and save their brother. But Jesus arrives 4 days too late. Martha will greet him, but not Mary. She's feeling deeply. So Jesus has to ask to see Mary, who does come out and falls at his feet and begins to sob. And Jesus is so overcome and touched by her emotions that he also begins to cry as they lead him to Lazarus' tomb. Suddenly, Jesus will stop and ask the men to open the grave, which is an absolute absurdity in its ask, and yet they are expecting a stench of death but do not receive it. Jesus speaks, and Lazarus comes out of the grave looking very much alive but still very much wrapped in all of the burial cloths and smelling of burial perfume. And in that moment, when that moment happens, Mary's soul collides with Jesus. Could this Jesus be her Christ? And for the remainder of the message, I want you to put yourself in the soul of Mary as I speak to you as if you are Mary. And so you understand what it's like to be Mary at this moment. Sometime later, after the resurrection or the rebirth of Lazarus, Jesus returns to the family. There's a party in his name, and Lazarus is celebrating his life, and Jesus, who is the guest of honor. The world doesn't know this, but it is on the brink of something better, orchestrated by God. And the answer to these long-awaited prayers is unfolding right before your eyes. Anticipation is rising, and hope is rising with it. Could Jesus at the table be the Christ? Mary, you are totally convinced that he is. Here he is in front of you. And you are overwhelmed by this deep and devotion and priceless feeling of gratitude as you stand in his presence. Jesus saved your brother, and now you are awestruck. You have sat at his feet before. You have heard stories at the table. You have recounted the lives of people he has changed by his hand, by his touch, by his words. Mary, you are fascinated by this man long before he ever restored your brother Lazarus to life. And Jesus believed in you too, didn't he, Mary? Calling you out to talk with you long before you ever believed in yourself. Admit it, Mary. Jesus makes you feel different. Jesus changes you. Jesus makes you want to get up in the morning and face even the most trying times. You want to be a better person when you're in his presence. Jesus believes in you, Mary, before you ever believed in him. How can you ever say thank you to him? And you see him now sitting at the table. There's this deep well of gratitude welling up inside of you, Mary, more than you can ever know or understand. You understand Jesus as a family friend who saved your brother, something, though, that goes far deeper than that kind of appreciation. Words and actions simply cannot explain. And your soul starts to collide with Jesus all over again at that table. And you are no longer the same because he is there in your presence. You were healed, Mary, when you did not know you were broken. And you long to be in his presence at that table. You are so enamored with Jesus. How could you ever contain all of the emotions that are welling up inside of you now? And you sense something is different about today at the table. You sense that Jesus needs something from you. But what? You look around for something that Jesus doesn't already have, but the bread and the wine is enough. The conversation is rich, the moment is beautiful, and yet you still find yourself searching for something more, something that he needs from you, Mary, something not at the table. You just know Jesus needs something from you. And you search for his eyes at the table, and he sees you, and once again your soul collides again with the divine. And you think to yourself, Jesus saved my brother, but does he know that he saved me too? And you believe that if Jesus could love a leper, then he could also love you too. Jesus treats souls differently, even women. So welcoming, so forgiving. And he treats you differently. Jesus never makes you feel less than anyone else. And that's why you want to follow him. You long to follow him, don't you, Mary? Everywhere, just to hear his words and be in his presence. This man is so kind. He is so compassionate that others ignore. Yet he will defend the rights of those who do not have rights, like you, Mary, and others like you, a woman whose life depends on a man to provide for her. You are a nameless face in the eyes of society. But in the eyes of Jesus, he knows you by name. And he will lift you up to the same level, like welcoming you at this table. You are valued in his world, Mary. You are whole, and you are not less than at the table. And you're no longer the awkward sister without a filter who doesn't like housework but longs to sit at conversations with the men. You don't want to be defined by your role in society, but you can't escape it. Yet when you are in his presence, you know that you belong at the table as much as any other person does, including the men, including the women. You matter to Jesus, don't you, Mary? Jesus doesn't care that you say or do the unexpected. He doesn't care that you are rough around the edges in the eyes of society. He accepts you, Mary, as you are. And then he makes you even better. You, Mary, are a work in progress, and Jesus loves you in that process. Jesus gets you, Mary, the real you. And for that, Jesus has already saved your soul. And so these feelings are big and starting to overwhelm you, and you just know there's something you must do. So you grab the most important possessions that you own in your dowry, and you pull it out, and you walk with your heart focused on the man who is sitting at the table, and you brush past your sister with the plates in her hand, and you ignore her voice asking you to help. You are on a mission, something that has to be done and not said. A moment must be made. And Jesus sees you out of the corner of his eye as he moves towards the crowd gathered around the table. Your eyes meet once again and your souls collide again. And somehow Jesus is expecting you. He doesn't pull away. No, he allows you to do what you came to do, to anoint him with the perfume, saved for his own burial. To give him your love and adoration with your tears and then wipe it away with your hair. So, Mary, you give him everything you have, your heart, your soul, and your most precious possession, you. You pour out everything at his feet as your tears mix with the perfume, and everything stops at the center of your worship for Jesus. Everyone sees what's happening. And then come the words that sting from Judas and those who side with him. And he tells you that you are foolish, that you are wasteful, but you don't feel foolish and you don't feel wasteful. In fact, this moment feels like the most right thing you could ever do, the most right thing you have ever done, to give Jesus your soul to someone who is not of this world, who is the Christ. Your soul collides with Jesus and you are never, ever the same. And so this man who sits at the table, who embodies this presence of God, this light that has come into the world, and this hope that is rising among the nation, gives voice to defend you. And Jesus says, leave her alone. That perfume was to be used in preparation for my burial. And this is how she's used it. You will always have the poor among you, but you won't always have me. Moments with Jesus are precious. Moments at the table covered with dishes. And Jesus is holding your soul right now in the palm of his hand for now and what is to come. You are right here where you should be, Mary. You are right at the feet of the Christ, worshiping who is holy and offering the only gift you could ever give, your soul. Mary, you anoint Jesus with your whole being, your presence, your gifts, your witness, your service, and even your worship and adoration. You are far more valuable than any perfume. You believe in Jesus because Jesus believes in you. And you will remember this moment at the table, for it will carry you for the days that are hard to follow. Mary, you will be there when death comes again. And you will grieve and you will hurt to a depth that you thought you could never endure, for you will long to come back to this table and remember, but tomorrow will already be upon you. And on that day, the one that you grieve for, the one that changed you, will change you again. And it will come with the rising of a sun, an empty tomb, and voices that will surprise the morning air. And suddenly you will smell the perfume all over again, and your soul will burst with joy because the presence of God has collided with your soul once again. For Christ has also resurrected you. And then, Mary, you will believe in Jesus all over again. And you will never, ever, ever be the same. Every time you sit at the table, you will eat from the same dishes that Jesus once used. And you will share in the bread, you will share in the wine, and you will remember the perfume. Always, my friends, use the good china. Would you pray with me? Lord, for all of the Marys in our midst, for all those who feel invisible or ostracized or left out of the conversation, for those who don't feel welcomed in a church or uncomfortable in church or uncomfortable in your presence, we lift them up and hold their soul in the palm of your hand. For those whose emotions are on the brink of exploding, Lord, may you feel the presence of grace in them now. And for anyone who needs to know that they matter in the world, let them know of your unconditional love and grace and forgiveness and acceptance. And Lord Jesus, may our souls collide with yours, and may we never be the same. Amen.